To do two things at once is to do neither. It's a great smackdown to multitasking, isn't it? Often attributed to the Roman writer Publius Syrus. But you know how all this goes. He probably never said it. But what I'm interested in today is it true though? I mean, it's obviously true when you're texting while driving or scrolling on TikTok at a dinner table. But I would like to argue that in some very specific and important tasks, doing two things or three or even four is actually what we should be aiming for. Look no further than the great Albert Einstein himself. In 1905, he released four remarkable scientific papers. One of them was about the theory of Brownian motion. It provided empirical evidence that atoms exist and laid the basic mathematics behind financial economics. The second one was about the theory of special relativity. The third one was about the photoelectric effect. That's why solar panels work today. It's a nice one, actually. He won the Nobel Prize with that one. And finally, the fourth one, which introduced an equation that all of you already probably heard. E equals mc squared. So tell me again how we should do more than two things at once. Now, I know that working on the Brownian motion theory, the theory of special relativity, and the photoelectric effect isn't quite the same as scrolling on TikTok at a dinner table. And also, this is Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds that have ever worked and ever walked on this earth. But the pattern of behavior that Albert Einstein was showing isn't unique at all. It is actually very common among highly creative individuals, from scientists to artists. Scientists have coined this term as slow motion multitasking. Slow motion multitasking feels counterintuitive. Normally when we do multitasking, it's because we have multiple projects due at one time. We're in a rush. We want to get them all done quickly. But if we took the time to do multitasking slowly, we would actually find it to work quite brilliant. In 1956, a young psychologist by the name Bernice Edison conducted a long decade research on 40 leading scientists. Einstein was already dead, but 4 of his subjects won the Nobel Prize. This research went on for decades, even after Edison's passing, and has successfully answered the question that was eluding Edison's mind. How were scientists able to produce and do so much work in such short amount of time and still go on with their daily lives? Is it their high skill set, high IQ? It turns out they all showed a similar pattern of behavior. In their first 100 research papers, they would repeatedly shift topics. They would never be stuck on one topic. Want to know how many times they shift topics? 4 times, 5 times, 6 times? Wrong. They moved topics 43 times in their first 100 research papers. Now, you're all probably wondering, right? Why is slow motion multitasking so incredible, so efficient? Well, it all stems back to creativity. Creativity is about thinking outside of the box. And the best way to think outside of the box is to repeatedly move boxes, to not be bound and stuck with one box. Now, I'd like to give you one final example. Charles Darwin, a man whose slow motion multitasking is so staggering. I find it to be incredible. So, when he left school, age of 18, he was initially interested in 2 fields, zoology and geology. So, pretty soon, he signed up to a ship called the Beagle. This was a ship that sailed through the southern oceans and passed a set of islands called the Galapagos. Now, during this voyage, Charles Darwin started to research on coral reefs. This was a great synergy between his 2 fields. And then, after the voyage, he wanted to learn more. He doesn't want to be bound by only 2 fields. So, he started to learn about psychology and botany. And then, in 1837, he started 2 new interesting projects. One of them was a little notebook called The Transmutation of Species. The second one was about earthworms. So pretty soon, and Darwin starts going. Darwin went back to the Galapagos and starts learning about the animals there. And then he has his first eureka moment. In a flash, he realizes how animals were able to evolve and slowly emerge through this process called the survival of the fittest. And during this voyage, a new project emerged. His son William was born. Well, that's a natural experiment right there. You get to experience and observe the development of the human infant. And then during all of this, as he's working on the theory of evolution, the development of the human infant, he realizes he doesn't know that much about taxonomy. So he starts learning about barnacles and spends 8 years becoming the world leading expert on barnacles. And then Natural Selection, a book he worked on his entire life and never finishes it. And then Origin of Species, a book he released 20 years after the voyage he went on the Beagle. And then The Descent of Man, a controversial book. And then a book about the development of the human infant, a book he was inspired by seeing his son William crawling on the wooden floor. By the time the book released, William was 37. And during all of this, Darwin is working on earthworms. He would fill his billiard rooms to the brim with earthworms. He would shine a light to see if they would react. He would stick a hot poker to see if they could sense the heat. He would chew with tobacco and blow at the earthworms. He would even play the flute at the earthworms. I would like to think of this great man, tired, exhausted after working on the book Origin of Species, anxious at the reception and the criticism of the Descent of Man. You and I would probably log into Facebook or Instagram. Darwin would go to the billiard room and study intensely on earthworms. So that's why I find it appropriate that his final great work is Formation of Vegetable Mold through the actions of earthworms. He worked on that book for 44 years. You and I don't live in the 19th centuries anymore. I can't believe any of us could work on one project for 44 years. But we do have something to take away from Charles Darwin and Albert Einstein. The modern world has presented us with one choice. Either we work from browser to browser, or work like a hermit crab, work on one project in the exclusion of others. But I find that completely false. I believe that working on 2 things, or 3, or even 4, slowly, is actually what we should be aiming for. So, put down your phone, pick up a notebook, and start writing down a list of all your projects, and get to work. Thank you.